This is one issue I have tried as much as possible to avoid. Yesterday, when my brother, Senator Abaribe, brought this matter up, I took up and said, no, I will not allow this to happen. Because he's about to remind me a very sad memory. And I'm speaking not along party line or ethnic or whatsoever, as I've watched and listened to the contribution thus far. Mr. President, very distinguished colleague, as a result of the action and inaction of Professor Humphrey Nwosu, I lost my immediate junior brother. He died right behind me for him refusing to do or carry out his duty as INEC chairman. Mr. President, many of my colleagues have stood up here and said he conducted the free and fairest election. There are three different meanings and three different interpretations that we should look at: conducting election, releasing results, and announcing results. Yes, he conducted the election. Yes, school of thought said he releases all the results. But you and I know releasing results is not the same thing as announcing results. He failed at the critical moment when he's supposed to salvage this democracy. Today we celebrate Abiola, or those people who have contributed to the success story of June 12, because they laid their life, they put their life on the line. If he is coward to withdraw in doing what is right at the critical moment, I think my brothers here should be fair enough. We are not saying you should not bring his matter out. And as my colleague have said, everybody that we have put before us that should be honored, we have celebrated them here. And don't forget, this is the highest lawmaking body of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, where we should see ourselves as one and one Nigeria. Professor Humphrey Nwosu, with due respect to him, because it's now late, does not deserve to be immortalized as one of the very few Nigerians that have done the right thing. And I want to plead with my colleague. As I've said, I'm not speaking along the ethnicity line, along the party line, but I'm speaking as Nigeria. We witness.
Let us not distort facts. It's very disappointing that some of us should be distorting facts just because Professor Humphrey is an Igbo man. An appeal I'm making that we should not allow our personal biases, our personal sentiments, and our party affiliations to influence what we are doing here. So far I'm concerned, during the June 12 presidential election, I was a presiding officer. And yes, I just came out from secondary school. I was the presiding officer in that election. That election has been adjudged up to today the freest and fairest election in the history of Nigeria. Mr. President, any Nigerian that googles internet, which election is the freest and fairest election in Nigeria, is the June 12 presidential election. Professor Humphrey Nwosu, a professor of political science from the prestigious University of Nigeria, a civil servant, before he was appointed in 1989, did his best, despite the pressure from Babangida government, despite the court order, Mr. President, allow me, despite the court order by Justice Beme that stopped the election, despite all the threats from the military cabal, the man still went ahead to conduct the freest and fairest election. Was it Professor Humphrey Nwosu that made Justice Saleh from Katangum Emirate from Bauchi to annul the election? Was it Justice Professor Humphrey Nwosu that made the military cabal to throw Nigeria into confusion? It is highly unfair. One of my colleagues mentioned about
I represent Imo West. I just want to draw the attention of the Secretariat to the fact that I'm one of the sponsors of this motion, and they wrote Imo North. For me, it should be Imo West, not Imo North 3. We are legislators, and we are representing the people. Take a census of Nigerians and ask them what they think about Professor Humphrey Nwosu. They will tell you he was a hero. So for us to sit here now and begin to distort history is not fair for our democracy. It's not even good for the country. Mr. President, I want to draw your attention to what happened on June 10. We're talking about June 12. Justice Ibeme, as early as 9:30 on June 10th, said there will be no election. And Professor Humphrey Nwosu tried to reach the head of state. He couldn't reach him. He couldn't reach the Attorney General. And there was an emergency meeting of National Defense and Security Council, which Professor Humphrey Nwosu audaciously attended uninvited and told them that the materials had been sent out and that he was ready for the election. Uninvited in the military council, he went there. That is courage of the highest order. And it was after he spoke that President Ibrahim Babangida have no choice than to ask him to conduct the election. Mr. President, we have human beings who are alive. Today, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the immediate past SDF, and late Mohamed Waziri, we are the SDP returning agents at the collection center. Yesterday, when this matter broke up, I had to call Boss Mustafa. I had to call him. I said, Boss Mustafa, what happened at the collection center? And he narrated to me how courageous Humphrey Nwosu was. And said, without Humphrey Nwosu's courage, you can't even talk about election. In fact, Buhari Bello, who was INEC legal director, was the one that was running in between Humphrey Nwosu and the NDSC. And Buhari Bello is still alive. He will testify to you how courageous Humphrey Nwosu was in that exercise. Mr. President,
in memory of Nwosu, the critical issue here is the honor that Nigeria owes this great man. I'm one of those who is, I'm very passionate about June 12th, very passionate, because I believe that has been one fabric that has challenged our sensibilities as a country. So the central issue here is not naming of the edified. The central issue here is the honor, because if Nwosu is not celebrated, who must we celebrate? Is it Otonzeribe or the judge who gave that judgment? I am of the opinion that outside whatever might be named after him, which of course is outside our past, as it were, we can at best recommend. But the central issue is that this man showed courage when that was necessary.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Sazanwa Onyewuchi, and I represent Imo East Senatorial District of Imo State. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am indeed very worried that the achievements of Professor Humphrey Nwosu is being subjected to such fierce debate. There's no doubt, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, that Professor Humphrey Nwosu is an architect of the freedom we enjoy today as a nation. Humphrey Nwosu.
Hebrew 4:16. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we...
The option A4, and conducted an election, adjourned the freest election to one, or advise that this Senate should not resort to scapegoatism, to say, this is the person that caused this, this is the person that did not do this. Let us look at things objectively.
The horrific
Nigerian. Humphrey Nwosu was a Nigerian. And at the time he worked, Nigeria was a very complex society, managed by very reckless, very ambitious, very dangerous military leaders. We knew all of them. They shot so many of their mates for no reason. And I'm sure shooting a civilian would be an ordinary event. We knew what happened at that point in time. I am not after getting anything named after, against his name, or giving him a national honor. That is left for the government of the day. But that history must not be distorted. We have kids here. Okay, they are gone. And they are listening. And they take this away. This is one of the highest, the most respected institutions in Nigeria. And so when we want to put facts, we put facts down for others to use. Humphrey Nwosu, to the best of my knowledge and from the functions it performed, is a hero. Now, he established what we are mimicking today, the very INEC we are trying to fine-tune. He laid the foundation. Just presidential election. They were successful. Don't forget, he conducted local government elections. They were successful. State elections, House of Assembly, reps, and Senate, they were all successful. Governorship. When it was time for presidential election, we knew the interplay of forces.
Most of them did not know much. As at that time, they were very young. Some were still in the university. Now they are here. The elder says, don't judge the dead. Leave him for his creator. Nwosu was a bloody civilian during Babangida's time. Colonel Kobu, who were in uniform there. My problem is that when it comes to civilian, we want to applaud our people. We have a lot of problems. Right here, one of the generals, and so many, we have celebrated them, that truncated this democracy. Nwosu has done his best. He has gone. The naming of this and that in his name depends on the executive. You can recommend. If the president wants, he will give him. If the president wants national honor, you can give him the best.
They were afraid that the Court of Appeal is going to give INEC a favorable response. The military came and annulled that election and disbanded INEC. And at that time, my junior brother Buhari Bello lost his job also, together with Nwosu. Now, how come, with this historical narrative, some of us are alive, we are participants in that process. There are some people here who are talking, who have never been part of the process. And then you are coming out painting certain historical narratives which are wrong. Please, let's honor ourselves and uphold what is right and do the right thing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Benue Northwest Senatorial District. Mr. President, as you can see, this issue has generated a lot of interest, not just because of the personality involved. It is because INEC, being a very critical institution in the promotion, advancement of democracy, would naturally attract attention, either for good or bad. I want us to situate our debate in the context of national service and intellectual excellence, which Professor Henry Nwosu is supposed to exemplify. Nwosu was a professor of political science, someone who by training was supposed to deliver excellent election to Nigeria. Humphrey Nwosu was also appointed for national service. From these two backgrounds, he did not achieve any of them. They say to whom much is given, much is expected. A professor of political science heading INEC could not deliver result. That is how you can assess him. It doesn't matter whether the circumstances were positive or not. If it were not positive for him to do so, he would have resigned. He didn't resign, which means he stood out to do the job. So on that score, he did not succeed. Now, national service. When you are called to serve the country, what you are supposed to do is to go to every extent to defend and deliver your mandate. As far as we are concerned, this gentleman did not conduct himself properly enough to deserve any national recognition at this moment. He did not deliver.
Thank you.
A few months ago, this Hollow Chamber celebrated the late Dr. Ogbonaya Onu. It was unanimous. On that occasion, I stood up and I spoke not just as a senator, I spoke as a secretary of Southwest Senators Caucus. And in fact, we regarded Ogbonaya Onu as somebody from Southwest. There was no controversy. There be other eminent Nigerians that were brought here. We celebrated them in less than 5 minutes. There was no controversy. Today, I speak as a senator representing the memory of Humphrey Abiola. And that we are even discussing this, bring back the pain of the loss of an illustrious Nigerian from Ogun Central Senatorial District. To attempt to immortalize or honor anyone who was involved with the annulment of June 12 that led to the death of MK Abiola is to undermine the insufficient recognition that will be given to him. It is indeed to also set a very bad precedent and to also make it very clear. If Humphrey Nwosu were to come from Ogun Central, if indeed he was to come from Abeokuta, anyone who participated in the June 12 debacle, regardless of the part of the country, including Abeokuta, I will stand up to speak against such a person. And you also know that even people from Southwest who were accomplices in the June 12 saga, they have not been forgiven tomorrow. If any of them was brought here, I will speak against him.